Good news. Crank taken care of, in theory. The crank is back and we're ready to go. Turns out I gave them two options. I said, hey, I can get bearings that are 0.25 millimeters oversized or 0.5 millimeters. They decided to split the difference, went to 0.3. So that's why my my 0.5 mil bearings locked it up pretty hard. We went ahead and got the crank reground, and I've got it sitting in the engine right now. WIS gives some specs for what these bolts are supposed to be, and they show you where to measure it, and they say this is the the standard, or the as new, the minimum size, and then the maximum size on those bolts. And I thought, well, no big deal. I'll get the bolts, I'll measure them. If they're in spec, I'll reuse them. If they're not, I'll get new ones. So I went to measure them. Now, according to the spec, they show, hey, here's a diagram. It shows you. So they say you're supposed to measure from right here to right here. So kind of a normal measurement, no big deal. And they say it should be from 66 millimeters to 67.8 millimeters, give or take. That's about 6 inches. 2.54 centimeters to an inch. That's what, 3, maybe almost 4 inches? I don't know, I can't do math. But it ain't that big. So I don't know what that spec is supposed to be for. I have no idea. I've got nothing. So I don't really trust that these bolts, in theory, those bolts should have been okay, right? You'd assemble them, plastic gauge, disassemble, check, and then reassemble. They should have a couple cycles in it. I went ahead and spent the 84, 85, 86 bucks, whatever it was after shipping, to get the new crank main bolts, just because I just didn't trust it. So it took a little while for those to get in, so I finally have those. Really, it took a while for me to decide to do it, and now I finally have those. So I've got those bolts. I've also got some other new parts in. Let's take a little walk around the shop and we can see what we're doing here. So here in the shop, I'm working on the head. So I've kind of cleaned this out. This was nasty inside here, right? So, this is the intake side, and these were just totally caked up. So one of the things I found, you can see right here, a little bit of oil. Well, it's not oil; it's brake cleaner basically, but a little bit of liquid coming through there.
Since this is on the intake side, I believe this is a whole bunch of carbon and other contaminants on the valve seat that are preventing the valve from sealing all the way. So those definitely need to be cleaned up.
You can kind of see down in there, that's fairly cleaned up now, but that was just a horror show inside there here on the intake side. Just awful. But beyond that, just kind of been cleaning it up, getting it ready. Obviously, it's not all the way ready yet. Once I have the valves out, I'm going to get the valves out of here, and when those are out, I'm going to go ahead and put the whole thing in the parts washer and kind of clean it up. So let's see what else we got. Speaking of the parts washer, ta-da! The parts washer. Brought it out here. I've got a little heating element inside there, and I'm using some oil leader. Over here, parts that I have cleaned out so far. Again, this is the intake manifold. You can see there's still some carbon just caked back in there. You talk about a horror show. These things were just flipping awful. You can see, like, I mean, it's just caked full of carbon. Fortunately, by now, it's kind of starting to come off again. I soaked these for quite a while, but I got to get a good brush to get in there and really clean that out. I mean, look at all the carbon that's just kind of coming loose in there. I mean, that's just terrible. This is the carbon that gets in, and this is the swirl valves right here, right? And that carbon gets in there. Those swirl valves, they seize up, burns out that motor. You get the warning messages and all that stuff. It's just terrible. They do make kits where these are aluminum instead of plastic, so you can get kits to replace these. I'm not going to bother doing that because I don't really think I need to. But otherwise, these soaked for a while in a parts washer. And they got a lot of the carbon out, but there's still some work to do. Here's the other side. Again, up inside there, you can see there's still carbon caked on the inside. It's all coked up oil. 3 cheers for EGR, right? And then there's some other parts I just threw in there, kind of cleaned them up, right? Oil cooler, EGR cooler, oil pedestal, valve cover, etc., and so on and so forth. Just trying to kind of clean it up. You can see the aluminum a little bit reacting there, but That's not going to hurt it. Oil cooler, all good and kind of cleaned out. Just kind of wanted to dissolve everything. We'll give those another little bit of a brush down and all that before they actually go on the car. But that's what I've been working on in the meantime.
We've reached that point in the project where I have a lot of different things going on at once. So let's go ahead now and start looking at getting the bottom end put back together again and putting the main bolts in on the crank caps. So we do the cap bolts and then the side bolts. All right, to center the bearing cap. So we're going to start on the top. So we have one, we start here. So this is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. They want to moisten the thread and head contact surface of the bolts with the crankshaft bearing cap with oil. So I have some oil here. Here, this is number 1. Let this go that far. Very light pressure. I'm just lazy, so we're just going to take it to there so it's not. Thread's all good.
Now we have 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. Now with those done, we do the side bolts next. Stage 1 is 53 Newton meters. This is number 1. Now we're going to 35 Newton meters in the same pattern we followed before. So 35 Newton meters, which means we've got to scale this back a little bit. Verify we can still easily turn our crankshaft. Look at that. All right. The next step is we go to 95 degrees.
This is the part where we are torquing the bolts to yield, and it's done in 2 steps, 95 degrees each. I'm using a angle gauge on the breaker bar to tell me when I've gotten to 95 degrees. It's a little fiddly to use, especially when you consider you can see the engine stands moving around on me because of course it's on wheels, but it's not too tough and you can get it done.
Next is we loosen these guys on the side. So we'll start with 8. Crankshaft rotates. Now we do our 53 Newton meters. We're retightening these. All right. Stage 2 is 95 degrees. Finally. Crank is installed.
That's going to do it for now, but next time we're going to take a look at the oil pump. You can see right here, mine's a little bit damaged, so that's going to have to be replaced. Also, we got to get the valves cleaned up and ready to install those. The valves, also nasty, who'd have thunk it. But the good news is, sneak peek, you're going to see these heads have come out very nice and clean with just a little bit of scrubbing. Okay, well, a lot of scrubbing. Those heads are going to come out. We're going to get the heads set up. We're going to get some pistons installed, and we're going to make some more progress. So stick around. That next video should come out relatively soon because most of the video is already shot. I just got to put it together. So until next time, thanks for watching, everybody.